Okay, Sara Shalva, you should know. Okay, Sara, first question. Can you tell me a little about your career experience? So very briefly, some of the past jobs you've had. You were at the Jewish Leadership Pipeline Alliance, Hebrew College, Lamud, NY. Can you tell me about your experiences at those places and what you're kind of bringing with you to your current position here at the DCJCC?
Sure, thanks. I've been a Jewish educator and administrator for about 10 or 15 years, working in a lot of different environments. So you mentioned Limud, New York. I was the executive director there. I worked with the board, and I worked with over 100 volunteers to put together a conference for an intergenerational pluralistic conference where Jews came out of the city, out of the place they lived, and went on retreat and did all kinds of learning together. And it was just an amazing, wonderful, joy-filled experience. So I loved that work. And then you also mentioned Hebrew College. I was the director of enrollment management at Hebrew College, where I oversaw the Office of Admissions for all of Hebrew College's programs. And while I was there, in addition to building an amazing admissions team, we also moved to online applications and increased enrollment in a lot of our programs. And it was just a wonderful experience to sort of be in an institution that was both kind of like a really academic sort of ivory tower place, but also a community institution that provided education for, they ran a prose door, which is kind of like a intellectual Hebrew high school, and it was on a hill in Boston, and it was also a wonderful experience. I got to work with a mentor and a colleague and a friend, Rabbi Danny Lehman, who is just a visionary in the Jewish world, a real inspiring leader, so that was cool.
And you mentioned that just before this, you were hired here at the DCJCC, you were involved in yoga. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I sort of left the Jewish community for a couple of years and worked on, I got trained in Bikram yoga, which is a hot yoga style that comes out of the Ghosh lineage, which is a particular school of yoga, and out of Calcutta in India. And but while I was teaching yoga full time, I was also doing some consulting work. So a dear friend of mine, Gali Cooks, who is the executive director of the Jewish Leadership Pipelines Alliance, asked me to be involved in the launch of a listening campaign at the General Assembly in November. And it was just a wonderful experience to reconnect with a lot of colleagues past, and it sort of reminded me that I have a unique skill set that I can bring to the Jewish community, and a real sense of the potential for thinking creatively about what it means to be Jewish, and thinking about building teams and shifting cultures, and how to kind of really create welcoming and inclusive programs and places where Jews can feel like they can kind of be comfortable in their own skin.
Great, and that leads us to your current position here, which is you just started out as a Director of Jewish Innovation.
Yes. Here
at the Washington, D.C. JCC. Just tell me a little about that. What does your job entail?
So it's a wonderful question. Carol, who's the CEO, brought me on to really think about what it means to be Jewish in Washington, D.C., and how to work with the staff here to think about connecting Jewish values to universal values, so that people are already living meaningful Jewish lives, right, out in the world, but sometimes they don't actually know what the Jewish values, what kind of decisions they're making, that those decisions, they're already Jewish, like a commitment to education, and a commitment to family. There's all kinds of things that people are making choices in the modern world, and those are really Jewish choices. And part of my job is to but to invite people to think about those Jewish values and allow those Jewish values to be anchoring for them and grounding for them, and to help the staff engage in really interesting and creative programming around Jewish values and Jewish ideas.
Great. And what are you most excited about in your new role?
Well, I'm thrilled to be working with the staff here. I think there are a lot of amazing people that work here, and that take their commitment to the Jewish people very seriously, and their commitment to culture very seriously. You know, what it means to be working in an arts institution in DC is like a very exciting thing to be doing right now. And the time, DC is changing so much. It's such a vibrant and dynamic city. It's so diverse, and it's just amazing to be able to be with an institution that has such an incredible history, and such a strong community of people who care very deeply about the arts and about their Jewish identity, even as their Jewish identity, like they may not be able to articulate what it is, like how they're Jewish in their everyday life, but I'm thrilled to be thinking about that and thinking about helping people do that.
And what do you see as maybe some of the biggest challenges that in this position, or what do you see as maybe a challenge?
You know what? I think being Jewish in the modern world is hard because you can have all kinds of messages and all kinds of places where people divide, you know, around politics, around Israel, around religious observance. There are so many places where Jews forget that we're one people, that we are a tribe, you know, that we're a family, and that we have an opportunity to share amazing traditions and amazing inheritance with the world, you know, and the JCC is a really welcoming place. It's a place that has its doors wide open to people of all backgrounds. I think that one of the challenges of my job is really like, how do I make everybody feel welcome here? And also make sure that we're not providing a like watered down experience, to make sure the experience is really high quality, because people in the DC area are super intellectual, they're super smart, they're very driven, they're very ambitious. So we need to make sure that our programming is on that level also. And it has to be welcoming, but it also has to be deep. Like, we want to have deep, meaningful Jewish learning here.
Great. And what do you think makes the DCJCC such an innovative place?
Well, certainly the people. There's a lot of amazing people that work here. But I also think the location is significant. You know, I think being on 16th and Q is a special place, and that this area has changed so dramatically over the last 10 to 15 years. And the DCJCC has done a lot to keep up with that change. Our arts programming, our film festival, the music festival, like things, the upcoming literature festival, like as we're planning, it just sounds amazing, you know? It looks like we're gonna have some really forward-thinking forward-thinking authors. So I think a lot of it is the staff, and it's also the people that come here. It's the constituents, it's the members, it's our friends, it's the donors, it's the board, it's everybody, you know?
And are you targeting the whole Jewish community, or younger
Yes.
Jews, or older Jews, or
No.
middle-aged
My job
Jews?
is with everybody. My job is really with everybody, and I am so excited to be thinking about that. To be thinking about. I mean, there's certain areas where where it looks like there's potential for significant growth. So one of those areas is young families, like young family engagement. So because a lot of Jews used to move out of the city, they used to move to Maryland, to Chevy Chase, to Rockville, to Silver Spring. So more and more families are staying right here in this neighborhood and sending their kids to various schools and really figuring out what is it to raise kids in an urban environment. So we're seeing that as one of the things that's happening around here. And so, you know, that's one area where I will be involved in programming. But that's not all. I mean, many of the constituents here at the DCJCC are, you know, older or retired, or so I wouldn't say that I'm focused in one area. I would say that that I'm excited to look for areas of growth all over the Jewish community, and places where I'm really interested in partnering with constituents and with members who are excited about Judaism and excited about pluralism and what it means to think about the intersections between Jewish culture and Jewish peoplehood and Jewish learning, and Jewish tradition and Jewish ritual and Jewish observance, all those things.
Great. And is there any upcoming programming that you've set scheduled so far, or are you still in the
we're in the planning stages of I'll tell you a few things that I'm very excited about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about an upcoming program that we're doing on September 27th that's raising awareness for breast and ovarian hereditary cancer gene. So that's coming up on September 27th. We are also, hopefully, I'm not sure this is going to happen, I'm pretty sure though, we're launching a class called Young Broken Jewish, Surviving the Holidays on a Budget. And that one is really geared toward our 20s and 30s, and that class is more sort of focused on both recipes, but also like, let's say you live in a small apartment, you live in DC, you live in a small apartment, maybe you work on the Hill, you're an intern, you're something, and you can't go home for Rosh Hashanah. But you want to somehow do Rosh Hashanah, but maybe you don't have a place, you don't have any relatives in the area. What are you going to do for Rosh Hashanah? So you host. Mm-hmm. So this class is going to help people think about what it is to host a Jewish holiday on a budget, like where they can do their shopping, what kind of recipes they can have, how many friends, maybe they can arrange their apartment so they can seat more people, what are the prayers, how do they cut the apples and honey, when do they do that part, all that stuff.
Okay, great. Last question, and you'd mentioned this before, but tell me about you live in the house that you grew up in. In Reston, and you're raising your family there. Tell me a little about that.
So my parents moved. I was born in Nicaragua, in Managua, Nicaragua, and in 1978, and there was a revolution going on. In 1979, my parents moved to Virginia because my dad is an economist, or was Sara Shalva. He was an economist who worked, who needed to be near the Agency for International Development and some of those other NGOs in the DC area. So they looked all around. They didn't really want to be in Maryland. They decided on Virginia because there were just so many beautiful trees. Reston, I don't know if you know, it's a planned community. It was founded by Robert E. Simon. He sold Carnegie Hall, and then he bought this plot of land. And Reston has been, it kind of imbues egalitarian values and is really community oriented. So there were never any kind of, it was always a welcoming place for everybody. Everybody could get a mortgage in Reston, even in the 60s, and it's a really diverse place because of that. And there's wonderful bike paths, there's amazing community pools. It's an incredible place to live. I've lived now in the Boston area, in New York City, in Jerusalem, in Beit Shemesh, in Ashkelon, Israel, all over Israel, all over America, and I really think Reston is and being in the house I grew up in, so my parents got divorced in 1986, and I feel there's this idea in Judaism of tikkun, of a healing, how the tikkun olam, to repair the world. So when you do a tikkun, it's like a healing on something that happens. It's you're repairing something. So I feel like my parents' marriage, it wasn't the best marriage. They got divorced, but I have a healthy marriage, and I'm raising these two kids in this same space, and it feels like a real tikkun. It feels like a real repair, a real way of somehow bringing a kind of redemptive energy to the world through just living in that same space that my parents lived in, and having my daughter be in the room that I grew up in, and my son being in the room that my brother grew up in, and I feel like if people have the opportunity to do that, it's a really nice thing.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much. And that's it.